Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to dive into a pretty unbelievable story. We're looking at how a man who was literally trained to save lives and hide entire armies fundamentally revolutionized the way we design golf courses. It's this wild journey from the grim, muddy realities of the battlefield straight to the lush, green fairways we know today. What we're about to uncover is a brilliant mashup of human psychology, fine art, and raw nature into something truly extraordinary. So let's get right into it.
Right, let's start by looking at the core belief of the guy who became known worldwide as the artist of golf architecture. For Alister MacKenzie, a golf course was never just a physical test of strength or some grueling march. It was this sweeping visual and mental puzzle. He fundamentally believed that beauty and challenge shouldn't be fighting each other. They absolutely have to coexist naturally. He wanted every single round to demand active imagination just as much as a technically good swing, creating a space that rewards your creativity rather than just, robotic precision.
But here's the crazy part. Before he ever designed a single golf hole, MacKenzie had a completely unexpected background. Born in 1870 in Yorkshire, England, he didn't start out sketching bunkers. He actually started his career in medicine. He was a civilian physician, which is a job built entirely on intense observation, careful diagnosis, and catching the smallest details. And those exact analytical skills became absolutely crucial when he left the safety of his practice and headed straight into the trenches. He served as a military surgeon and a highly specialized camouflage expert during both the Boer War and the First World War.
It was actually during those brutal military years that MacKenzie got completely hooked on one big question. Why do some things appear exactly as they seem, while others just completely fool the eye? He started studying battlefield camouflage intensely, picking apart exactly how human beings interpret distant landscapes. And what he found was fascinating. He realized that we almost always believe what we expect to see rather than what's actually sitting right in front of us. It's this bizarre psychological quirk. And that deep fascination with visual deception, that became the ultimate catalyst that changed golf architecture forever.
So think about how he connected these two totally different worlds. On the battlefield, your survival literally depended on illusion. We're talking about trenches cleverly hidden under some brush, artillery perfectly disguised as empty countryside, or massive decoys built just to fool trained scouts. MacKenzie took those exact life-or-death principles and just dropped them right onto the golf course. On his designs, a bunker might look way closer than it really is just to make you second-guess your club. Or a fairway might look terrifyingly narrow from the tee box, totally messing with your confidence, but then it actually offers a massive landing area once you get out there.
Now, the absolutely crucial thing to understand here is that he wasn't doing this to be mean. He wasn't trying to unfairly trick you or punish you just to make the game miserable. His goal was simply to provoke thought. He'd build a green complex that visually begs you to hit one type of shot, but strategically rewards something completely different. He wanted you to pause, check the wind, read the slopes, and really think about your environment before you just blindly grab a club and hack away.
Which brings us to a massive shift in thinking for that era. Because he came into the sport with fresh eyes, completely unburdened by old traditions, he flat out rejected the conventional idea that a golf course had to beat you up to be good. He boldly insisted that golf should actually make people smile. A round should feel like a genuinely pleasurable walk through nature. If there's a challenge, it should come naturally from clever design, not from endless grinding punishment that just leaves you frustrated.
So how do you achieve that perfect walk? Well, for MacKenzie, it was all about restraint. While other architects back then were bringing in heavy equipment to literally bulldoze the landscape into submission, MacKenzie believed the absolute best golf courses were already hiding in the land itself. His job was just to uncover them. Instead of forcing nature to fit some manufactured blueprint, he acted like a partner to the landscape. And that profound naturalism is why his courses always feel like they've just been sitting there for centuries.
Okay, let's look at how this actually plays out on the grass, starting with something that sounds totally counterintuitive: wide fairways. Back then, the rule of thumb was hit it perfectly straight or lose your ball. But MacKenzie figured out that wide fairways actually create way more strategic golf. Why? Because space gives you endless choices. It opens up all these different angles of attack and forces you to actively decide how to play the hole, rather than just funneling everyone down the exact same narrow bowling alley.
And that extra width creates what we can call the golfer's dilemma. When you have space, you literally have to make a choice. Imagine standing on the tee box right now. Do you aggressively take on that fairway bunker to get a much better angle to the green, or do you play it totally safe down the opposite side, knowing you're leaving yourself a blind, really tough approach shot? Do you fire right at the flag or aim for the fat part of the green? MacKenzie wanted the architecture to reward your smart, strategic choices rather than just heavily penalizing a slight physical mistake. He essentially wanted you to choose your own adventure.
Now, when you do inevitably find a hazard on one of his courses, it's not going to look like the rigid, perfect geometric circles you might be used to. MacKenzie leaned heavily on that military camouflage background to build bunkers that looked completely natural. You'll see jagged edges, weird irregular shapes, and these beautiful flowing lines. They look exactly like ancient formations carved out over hundreds of years by wind and water. They look totally accidental. But beneath that gorgeous natural look, pinpoint strategic precision. Every single bunker messes with your decision-making, and every hazard is exactly where it needs to be.
He also took a ton of inspiration from ancient Scottish links, which means he completely embraced the ground game. He championed these rock-hard fairways, rolling contours, and natural slopes where balls would just bounce around playfully and unpredictably. He actually thought modern golf was getting way too obsessed with just flying the ball through the air like a dart, completely ignoring the imagination of using the ground. On his courses, you might hit a high, towering wedge, while your buddy might get creative and bounce the ball off a slope onto the green. He loved that freedom and the sheer creativity it demanded.
So, by the early 1920s, all of these wild, radical ideas crystallized into this clear, five-step philosophy. A course absolutely must be beautiful. It has to be strategic. It must be natural. It has to be walkable. And above all else, it has to be enjoyable. Those 5 pillars completely defined his style. And the amazing thing is how universally it worked. He wasn't a one-trick pony. These principles translated flawlessly, whether he was building in the sand dunes of Scotland, the rugged Australian outback, the massive cliffs of California, or the rolling pine hills of Georgia.
At the end of the day, MacKenzie managed to strike this elusive, perfect balance where raw beauty and intense challenge just blended seamlessly. He literally wanted you to pause, take a breath, admire how stunning the scenery was, and then instantly start doing the math on your complex strategy for the hole. His true genius was making incredibly complex, highly engineered architecture look completely effortless. Walking his fairways, you'd swear nature itself miraculously grew a perfect golf course, and he just happened to stumble upon it one day.
So I'm going to leave you with this thought. When a guy spends his life mastering the art of visual deception to stimulate the human mind, what kind of legacy does he actually leave behind? We've explored the foundational philosophy of Alister MacKenzie today, but how do these deceptive, natural principles manifest in the real world? Just look at this list. Augusta National, Cypress Point, Royal Melbourne. Which of these undisputed masterpieces are we going to dig into first when we explore his worldwide legacy in Part 2? You definitely won't want to miss seeing how the Doctor of Camouflage painted his masterpieces across the globe. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.